Hi guys, it's the Forgetful Scholar, and today we're going to chat about books. Two books. So first book, Ghost Roommates. Second book, I don't know. I'm torn. I don't know what to think. I think I'm over my reading slump. I think so, because the first book, I had a good time this week, so. So the first book is Ghostly Roommates, and it's Haunting Jordan by P.J. Alderman. If you could see, out of the old Queen Anne style Victorian house, there's ghosts coming out of the windows. I thought that was fun. So this is just a suspense murder mystery, and it takes place in two different time periods. So the first one is contemporary times with Jordan. She moves to this old house that she wants to reno because her ex-husband was murdered in LA and she needs a fresh start, even though the police think she did it. And Hattie, which the murder takes place in 1890, and she's one of the ghosts. Now it's just one of them, and she wants her murder solved. So she does that through reading old journals from the ancestors and things like that of the deceased, and the POV jumps. So when we're in Jordan's POV, the chapters are like chapter 1, chapter 2, things like that, right? And then when we're in the POV of whoever's diary she's reading, we get titles like The Great Fire, things like that. So it's pretty easy to distinguish what's going on. Now, this was a 4-star for me. I had a great time. It was it's touted as a cozy mystery. Definitely. I definitely felt like that. I really enjoyed myself. Jordan was a fantastic character, different, fantastic. She was strong without being bitchy. She was a different kind of personality than what, we see all the time. She is a psychiatrist, but right now she's not seeing patients. She's licensed in LA, but now she moved to Port Chatham, and she just want to renovate her historical home and have a quiet life. She's a little bit neurotic. She's a 4-point plan. And she's not going to let the hottie that lives across the street with the great ass take her away from her 4-point plan, which I thought was so cute. I really liked her, I liked the secondary characters. I really liked Hattie, too, in 1890. Her part of the story, infuriated me. But also, I realized that I live in, contemporary times where women actually have more rights than they used to. But man, did every man in the history, except Frank Lewis, but all the other ones, I just was oh my God, Hattie, punch him, punch him, punch him. But of course she wouldn't, because that's, So it was very much kept to the time period, which was fun. After 100 pages, did I know who the killer was for Jordan's ex-husband and Hattie's killer? Yes. But I consume a lot of mystery stuff, whether it's romance mystery or, mystery media on TV and movies and stuff. I always loved it. So you watch enough of it, you could see the plot points. You know what I mean? And it's not like I'm saying I could solve a real murder. No, I'm a freaking idiot. So no. No. Was I kind of bummed that my brain was already this is who killed Randall, the ex-husband, and this is who killed Hattie? Yes, I was, because I was having fun along the journey, but I still kept reading, and I still had a blast. Of course, kept reading to see if I was right. I was. But also, I enjoyed getting there, and if you don't know who the murderers are, and then you're enjoying the ride, and then that happens, it wasn't out of the blue. There were the clues sprinkled about was really well done. Hattie's younger sister, Charlotte, her ghost, I believe, is still a teenager, because when Hattie's diaries, Charlotte's 15. That's an important number. At least for me, that was an important number. And Charlotte died a couple of years later. We did not dive into Charlotte's death and if she was murdered or not. I'm kind of hoping they go into it in Ghost Ship, which is the next of this mystery series. Because, she, after her big sister died, she was 15 and no other family, so she ended up becoming a sex worker, and died a couple of years later by the water front, but we don't know if she was murdered or not. So Charlotte is a ghost in the house with Hattie. And the ghosts are so cute. Like, I love this little world that the writer created, because, like, the ghosts sometimes aren't there, and then they come back, and they're like, oh, we had to go to, like, a telekinesis workshop, you know? Oh, someone was giving a lecture on how to use our powers, so we were there. I'm like, I love that. Like, I love that. I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. I'm here for it. The secondary characters and the contemporary times, I really enjoyed them. Jace is sort of like the guy that she's trying really hard not to notice how cute he is. He was an ex-lawyer, like defense attorney. He came up to Port Chatham for a quiet life. He owns a pub, like a jazz pub, and jazz is really big there. Yeah, he's a really easygoing, apparently gorgeous guy. There's a mysterious dog that shows up and is like, Jordan, you're my owner, deal with it. And I love him. And she doesn't give him a name till like the third act. And funny enough, like, I was invested. Like, I was like, oh, what are you gonna name him? Why is he so smart? He's so smart. He doesn't like any of the other, like, for some weird ass reason, I like targeted, centered on the dog. And what his name was gonna be. I don't know. You can tell by how much, like, I'm smiling, giggling. I had a fun time. I enjoyed myself. I can't wait to jump into Ghost Ship. I did check on Amazon to see how many books this writer has done. It doesn't look like this writer has done a lot, which I'm kind of super bummed about, because I enjoyed their style too. It was a very easy read. Did I say how much I loved how neurotic Jordan was? Yes. And Hattie, I loved her. She was a boss ass bitch in 1890s, and I'm here for it. She was so cool. She was trying to unionize her dead husband's shipping company. She was standing up for herself. She was standing up for her sister as much as she could, you know, in 1890, and reading it and understanding like how different women's lives were in that time, and how much Hattie was like, I do not think so, still within the gilded cage of her status. Like, I loved it. And I had to remind myself, like, hey, Hattie's dead. Don't get too attached, because we're trying to solve her murder. But my brain was like, no, I love her. I want her to have a happy ending. And she kind of does. I don't want to spoil too much. And this book has been out for a while. I think like 2003 was that this one, or was that the other one? 2009. So it has been out a while, but like, it's a primarily mystery book, so I don't want to give away like who done it. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna leave it at that. This book was 4 stars for me, and the only reason it wasn't 5 stars is because Jordan sees all these ghosts. And they don't explain why she sees all this ghosts. She just does. And like, she doesn't say that she saw ghosts in LA. There's like no indication that she has always had this ability, but just something about Port Chatham, she can see ghosts. And I was like, well, I want to know why. Was it something she always could do and she pushed it away, and that's why she always has like a plan for everything, and everything that has a plan? Is that why? Or what? Because Port Chatham seems like it's bustling with ghosts. And you know there's ghosts in LA. Like, come on. Of course there's. And yes, I'm superstitious. Whatever. So like, that was the only reason I wasn't like, that's the only reason this isn't 5 stars. And Charlotte, I will say, especially Charlotte the ghost, I loved her. I did. She was like, oh, let me show you my new power. Ooh, I could take the gun. Want me to take the gun? Like, she was there for it, and I loved it. But Charlotte in the diaries did annoy me. But at the same time, I had to remember the time period. She just reminded me a lot of Lydia from Pride and Prejudice. That kind of naive mixed with self-importance, like, and spoiledness a little bit. You know what I mean? But she was 15. You know, she was a little kid. She was 15. But I loved her ghost, which is a weird thing to say. It is. The secondary characters for Jordan, like her best friend that's still in LA, loved her, but there is a little bit of like a tidbit mystery, because like her ex-husband, Randall, who's murdered, had a bunch of affairs throughout their whole marriage, right? And it might be that like her best friend Carol might have been one of those women, so it's a little messy, a little like I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm here for it. I want to know, did Carol sleep with Randall? I need to know, so I like that. You don't get that answer in this book. Jace, the pub owner, of course, the love interest, he is like the epitome of the opposite of what Randall was. Like, he's kind, he's laid back, all that kind of stuff. Darcy is the local sheriff who is so jealous that Jordan can see ghosts and she can't. She's been trying for like 8 years to see the ghosts. She's here for it. She's got Jordan's back, and I love that. You know what I mean? Because like a lot of times in these mystery media, when the head detective solving the crime, private investigator, whatever, the local cops are kind of depicted as idiots. So it was nice that this was like, no, the local cop is here for it. They're down to party. Let's get this done. Let's solve this ghost murder, So it's really cute. And I loved how the town was like, oh, you see our local ghosts? You're one of us, honey. We just accept you. You see our local ghosts. You see Hattie and Charlotte. Oh my God, you belong here. You're home. You're one of us. And they just accepted her. Everybody from like the historical society, next door neighbor, who like at first I was a little worried because she was kind of depicted as like typical Karen, but oh, I heard that you see Hattie and Charlotte. Oh my gosh, you're one of us. Let me help you with it. Like, I was just like, I kind of love this town. They're also, welcoming, and you're one of us. And yes, there's a rumor that you killed your husband, but you see the local ghosts. So you're our local murderess or something. And even what the sheriff, she's like, well, even if you did kill him, I kind of get why you would. I was like, Darcy, I love you. You were wonderful. And there was one scene, she's, says good morning to a young man on an old-fashioned bicycle, And even I was like, is that a ghost, or is it just a vintage lover in this town? Because the town is like really connected to restoring their old homes and like building boats like that. It's a very like vintage, enthusiastic town. You know what I mean? So like it could have gone either way. So it turns out, no, she's seeing all the ghosts, and like she can't really tell them apart except for like maybe old-fashioned clothing. But that doesn't even really, because like men's old-fashioned clothing from 1890s, especially if they're like dock workers and stuff like that, where they wouldn't have the full three-piece suit. Men still wear clothes like that. It's not that big difference in fashion all that much from an idiot's perspective, or someone who's not into like costume fashion and things like that wouldn't know. You know what I mean? So she kind of freaks out. And like, I don't blame her, it would have been a 5 stars if they explained why she sees the ghosts. I've been talking about this book too much. It's time to move on to the one that I don't know how I feel about it. It's Worth Any Price. Bow Street Runners, book 3 by Lisa Kleypas. Like, you have his face, and this is a reprint. And seems like an older one. So this was like, I'm not sure if this is the reprint or what, but it's like copyright by 2003. Now, I gave this a 3 stars as FM historical romance. There were some parts in this I hated, and there were some parts in this I freaking loved. Let's start with the parts I loved. Okay. So, the couple, Charlotte and Nick, I really liked them. I did. I thought they were super cute. I love their romance. It's sort of a forced marriage trope, and I loved how connected they were. I didn't like that they had so much in common, just because the things they have in common was childhood SA. So I was like, oh, babies, no, oh, So the synopsis is, Nick is a Bow Street runner, which is like sort of a detective before they were detectives. And Charlotte was basically sold by her parents to this rich P-word in exchange for their patronage, and she was going to marry him. You know, she ran away. So the P-word guy, Ragnar, he hires Nick to go find her because apparently Nick and I read this out of sequence, but Lisa Kleypas is fantastic. You don't have to read all the sequences to get what's going on. You know, that's one of the things they do amazing, you know. So Nick used to be a bad guy, now he's a good guy. He goes find Charlotte. Insta love kind of a thing. Not the biggest fan of that, but that's okay. He marries her instead. And basically they go back to his house and kind of the marriage happens, you know what I mean? Where they slowly start to know each other, even though they're having lots of sex, it's all good, okay. So they start to know each other a little bit better, and like, Nick's enemies are gunning for them. See, like, the way the back is written, I would have thought this would have been more action-packed. But I should know better. Lisa Kleypas's books, the back of the books and the titles don't always correspond with everything that goes on. Anyway, I loved the main couple. I really liked Nick's sister, Sophia. She was a bad bee and I loved her. And you get a little synopsis about her book with her husband, Sir Ross. And Sir Ross was kind of a controlling a-hole in this to Nick, not to Sophia. Later on, you don't blame him, but when it first happens, I was like, excuse me? Because there's nothing that pisses me off more than being voluntold to do something. So that was just my personal pet peeve, you know what I mean? I loved Sophia and Charlotte's friendship. The characters were fantastic in this. I had a good time. It didn't completely take me out of my rut, but it got me interested enough to hop over to Haunting Jordan, and I think that got me over my rut, so awesome. Now I'm gonna go to things that, the thing I really loved about this, like freaking loved. Cannot specify how much I love this. See, there's two main bad guys in this, and one of them seems to be an overarching bad guy from earlier books, right? So what I loved about this, there was murder, death, kills, and if you get that reference, you're amazing. But Renard dies, and I was like, yay! Do it again! And then the criminal that Nick is chasing, and seems to be a criminal, one of the bad guys in earlier books, he dies too. And I was like, yay! Do it again! I was so happy. I was so happy because a lot of times with Lisa Kleypas, you are described that the guy is a badass, but you never see him being a badass. And there were a lot, well, I won't say a lot, but like 2 scenes in this where Nick was doing badass things. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. He's deserving of all this, like, ooh, Nick Gentry, ooh, kind of stuff. So I really freaking loved that. You know what I mean? Now I'm going to go over to the rant side because this video is getting a little long for 2 books. I will say, considering the synopsis on the back, the book was a little slower than I expected it to be. See, nothing really happened until the third act. Which I was like, so there was about 300 pages of kind of nothing. Like them slowly getting to know each other, but not a lot really. Until like page around 310, then stuff got interesting. And really the book is only like 380 pages. So there's a lot of nothing, a lot of setting up for things, and it was pretty slow going, and then boom, everything happens within like 70 pages. I wasn't a fan of that. I was like, oh, you could have sprinkled stuff a little bit more in there at one point, because the moment Nick takes Charlotte to her parents' house to explain that he married her and he'll be happy to take up the helping their parents out financially, because, you know, he's super rich. And they were like, no, you know, we're going to stick with Lord Renard. And I was like, oh boy. The moment I saw she had 5 younger siblings, I was like, oh God, take the kids and run. Take her siblings. bring them to London and run. Because Charlotte told him before that Lord Renard used to be left in the room with him and he would like touch her, you know? And I'm like, oh God, oh God, oh God. She has like 2 younger brothers, 2 younger sisters that are under the age of 10. And Lord Renard like got interested in her at freaking 8 years old. Disgusting. And I was like, okay. And then the author described her 16-year-old daughter, Ellie. And I was like, oh God, Lord Renard, her parents are going to sell Ellie to him. Take Ellie and run. Take her and run. And I'm a freaking idiot. I am a freaking fool. So if I could see this laid out, Mr. Badass Super Detective, because everyone was like, oh, he's so smart. He's one of the best detectives. You should have seen this. You should have known what was happening. You know what I mean? You should have. Because I'm an idiot and I saw it happening. And then, like, yes, Lord Renard's coming from Ellie, and Charlotte gets an emergency letter from her, so she goes there. And at one point, Charlotte, I think that's like page 311, she's like, or 316, and she's like, who would have guessed Lord Renard would have gone for Ellie? I literally slammed the book shut and called out to the heavens, scared the crap out of my dog. Sorry, buddy. And I was like, everyone, Charlotte, everyone who's reading this book saw this happening. Everybody. That was one of the things I really hated about this book. And another thing, the whole first chapter about him going to a madam of a brothel and starting a 2-year affair with her, we did not need. I do not know why it was in there. There was no need for it. I thought, oh, because like he kind of tells the madam that like when he was 13, he was sent to a prison boat. And I was like, oh shit. Because like 13-year-old sent to a prison boat, you know, you could guess what happened. I was like, oh my God. And he said, no, it never like fully happened, but like he doesn't like to be touched. And I thought, oh, maybe that's the only chance he says that. That's too bad. I wish he would say that to his, Charlotte later on, because then they could bond over it. Unfortunately, shared trauma, you know what I mean? But he does tell Charlotte, like he does share this horrible secret with Charlotte, and she helps him realize that it wasn't his fault, like all these kind of things. Beautiful. That chapter made me love this couple so much, you know? But also made me super confused for the first chapter. Not only does he start the affair, we get sex scenes with the madam from the brothel. And I was like, what the hell? Like, that was not needed. I hate when romance novels have one of the main couple, you're having sex with somebody else. Like, it just, I don't know. It like gives me the feeling that I'm reading like a cheater, even though it's not technically. I don't know. And this could be just like an idiosyncrasy of mine. I understand that. But like, ew. You know what I mean? Like, ew. I did not like that. I hated that. I hated that. I hated the whole Mr. Super Smart Detective Man didn't detect and realize Ellie or even the smaller kids were going to be targets. Did love the couple, love the romance, love the secondary characters, got me interested in wanting to read the rest of the Bow Street Runners. Love the Murder, Death, Kill. Wanted more of it. 2 of them. Loved it. I love Charlotte's personality. Again, refreshing, different kind of personality. She didn't feel like cut and paste from another book. I will say Nick felt a lot like the Hathaway hero from who's the hotel magnate. I think Poppy's story, the sister Poppy. It was basically the same guy, except they had different trauma. Like, it was basically the same guy, different trauma. But I'm accepting that from Lisa Kleypas. That is how they write. They focus more on individual females. Okay, fine. I like to fall in love with both people of the couple, so that's gonna be a little hard for me to let go of. But I'll try, because that just seems to be their style. You know what I mean? Fair enough. It did make me want to read the rest of this series itself, so thrift store hunting. So yeah, so this one's a 3 stars because like parts I loved, parts I hated. Then it was like, I love this, hate this, love this. Oh my gosh. So there we go. Okay, I don't want to, but it's time for me to get back to the real world. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.